Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to day 3 of the NWR Communications Small Cap Investor Conference. On the call today, we have management from Terragen Holdings Limited. Terragen is a leader in the research, development, production and sales of biological products for agricultural sectors in Australia and New Zealand. Each of their products use a combination of naturally occurring live microbe strains, which they've selected to address soil health or help boost the productivity, welfare, and resilience of farm production animals. The company's aim is to increase farm productivity through the use of these products, while also providing improved environmental sustainability. The company listed on the ASX in December last year following a successful $20 million IPO. So from Terragen today, we have Jim Cooper, the CEO, and we also have Cara King, the CFO. So Jim has been prior to becoming managing director, Jim had commercial experience in growing businesses from his roles running infrastructure assets, including as the CEO of the Port of Portland and as an executive at the Port of Melbourne. Prior to that, Jim was a corporate lawyer. Throughout his career, he's focused on growing sales through business development, developing clear corporate strategy and driving sustainability. And through much of his career, he's focused on the agricultural industry and dealt with farmers and the farming supply chain. So Terragen's CFO, Cara King, is an experienced commercial manager and financial controller. She's adept at managing stakeholder relations and negotiating good outcomes. Prior to this, she was BDM and financial controller at the Port of Portland, as well as other business analyst roles there. For any attendees on the call who'd like to ask questions, you can do that by dropping them into the Q&A panel at the bottom of your Zoom window, and we'll get to them after Jim and Cara have gotten through their presentation. So with that, Jim, I might pass the reins across to you. Go ahead, Jim.
Good, thank you, Tim. Thanks for the introduction. Yes, I started at Terragen earlier this year, in March this year, and my first question when I arrived at Terragen and when I was considering the position was, well, what is Terragen? And Terragen is an Australian agricultural company with a very rich scientific heritage. And over the last 10 years, a very big scientific team of in-house scientists and also external Australian universities have developed two very high quality products, which are actually they're live bacterial products for farmers. And these products are very good for farmers who are looking for alternatives from chemicals and for chemical fertilizers and for antibiotics for their animals, and the concerns of consumers about the inputs into their farm produce. And very much the 10 years of scientific research that's been undertaken by Terragen has positioned the company to be in the right place at the right time as these questions are being asked by farmers, not just in Australia, but overseas as well. So we have a scientific team based in Australia. We manufacture what was invented by the company, and it's manufactured in Queensland at a production facility. We have laboratories also adjacent to the production facility. And we have a sales team based through the farming regions of mostly Southeast Australia. And we also have a large agency network, which I'll get into later in the presentation. Terragen's been around for more than a decade, but it listed on the stock exchange in December 2019, last year, and there was $20 million raised. And this has really given the funds to Terragen now to pivot from being a scientifically focused organisation to being a sales and commercial organisation and marketing and commercialising these excellent products that the company has developed. The scientific research into the products commenced in 2010, and they started with an acknowledgement that natural bacteria, mainly in the family of bacteria called lactobacillus, can actually have, and there might be 200 bacteria in the lactobacillus family, but the scientists isolated some of the lactobacillus bacteria and they knew that they were likely to be good for soil and good for growing of plants. And so they isolated these bacteria. They genetically mapped the genome of the bacteria. And then they started mixing a number of the bacteria together. And that resulted in Terragen's first product, which is called Greatland, which is a mixture of 6 microbes, 1 yeast and 5 bacteria. And that's been in the market for about 8 years and has been used in all sorts of agricultural sectors, such as mainly in the dairy pasture sector, but in horticulture, tree nuts, and all sorts of other commercial uses, macadamia nuts, avocados, bananas, sugarcane, growing of lucerne. But it was in the dairy sector and the growing of pasture that Milo had its, Greatland had its best impact. And Cara, I might just get you to go back to the previous slide. I will jump back and forth between these page 4 and 5. It was then the story continued that with the various dairy farmers seeing the benefits of Greatland in their pasture, they noticed that their dairy cows and their calves were actually appeared to be more vital, healthier. They had bigger appetites. They were sick less often. And that led the scientific team at Terragen to go back into the laboratory, and they developed a second product, which is our big product, which will be the product that we commercialise from here on in. And that product is called Milo, and it has a different collection of microbes. There are 3 microbes, lactobacillus microbes in it. And this is the product which we use to add to the feed of farm animals. It has been tested in not just in dairy cows, but in beef cows, sheep, goats, and other animals. But we are specialising in the dairy industry and for dairy cows for Milo. Our production facilities are based in Queensland at Coolum, and we have 15 scientists up there who are employed by the company, and they are involved in the laboratory, but also in the production of the microbes, which I'll get into in due course and explain how the microbes are actually produced. The management team, I'm based in Melbourne, and our sales team is based throughout country Victoria and South Australia. And Cara King is on her family's farm in Western Victoria in Bessibel. So we are a diverse team, and we're big users of video conferencing. And I think the other comment I would make before leaving about Terragen's, the introduction to Terragen, is that when we listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, and also prior to listing, we have a very strong share register of high net worth investors who are long-term investors. So we've enjoyed new investors joining our register since December last year, but we do have a very strong backing of a good group of high net worth investors who are with us for the journey. And what the investors have been interested in is Terragen's contribution to the sustainability of farming and the desirability sometimes to invest in ESG type assets. Some people have called it in agriculture the green wave, where we are looking, not just farmers, but consumers are looking critically at the inputs to farming, and they're looking at farm practices which are sustainable. And very much Terragen's products where the research has been completed and we have an existing supply chain to market, an existing sales force, it's very fair to say that Terragen is in the right place at the right time for the investment market. Thanks, Cara. So just that second slide is really just to emphasise our 2 products, and the brand names Milo and Greatland. I might also say that each of the products, the formulations of the products are the subject of patents. worldwide, mostly granted, but some are still pending patents, but we have very good intellectual property protection. And the products are also certified organic, and we have that certification confirmed in Australia and also in New Zealand and also in the USA. And one of the important features of each of these two products for farmers is that the farmers will say there is no withholding period. So unlike putting chemicals onto your farm produce or into your animals, and you must leave those products for 2 weeks or so before they can be consumed or processed, these products are natural products, and there is no withholding period. They can be used immediately, and that's part of the selling features of our Milo and Greatland products. Thanks, Cara. The scientific heritage of Terragen is a very important feature of the company. And it's because the type of products that we sell, bacteria, they're live product. They have an expiry date of 6 months. The feature that they are live is actually part of why they work. So Milo is the live lactobacillus bacteria going into the gut of dairy cows and dairy calves, and improving the gut health of those animals, and resulting in really good outcomes of health. And I'll get into the benefits of the products shortly in the presentation. But the reason why the products work is because we have a team of 15 very highly qualified scientists, 6 of whom hold PhDs, and they have overseen the research and the improvement of how we manufacture today. And in fact, the original scientist who isolated the microbes for Greatland, she is still very much a key part of our team, as well as her colleagues that join her in the team of 15 scientists. We have a very strong quality assurance function where all of the product after it's made is tested to ensure that it meets specification. And the scientists are particularly interested in the concentration of the live microbes, that they're healthy and they're at the minimum concentration levels that we promise to the farmer when they reach the farm field ready to be administered, that they will be at a certain concentration that gives the best effect in their cows and also in their soil. So quality assurance function is very, very important. When we need to do extra research, we do use the University of Queensland and the University of Sunshine Coast and RMIT University in Melbourne. And in fact, we do have 3 external research projects that are underway at the moment using the University of Queensland. And that's very important to provide the scientific backing for how these products work. Our salespeople who are experienced in agriculture, however, say in addition to the university results, it's very important for them to have farm trial evidence about the products. And so we do have years of farm trials of the products being used on operating farms, and we have the statistics of performance from those farm trials. And we also do have what we call our hero farmers, who are well-regarded farmers throughout the farming districts where we sell, who are big supporters of our product. And it's fair to say at the moment that this is not a niche into which Terragen is selling our products. We are selling to mainstream dairy farmers, and very much the focus now on commercialising Terragen's operations is having good success in sales, and we've been very pleased with the uptake of the products. Thanks, Cara. I might just pause, Cara. What I need to do is I might just go back to the Terragen product page. Just if you just go back to 2 slides here. You might ask, what actually does Milo do? What Milo does is that it's a liquid product. and it's water and molasses and microbes that are blended together. 10 mils is given to a dairy cow each day, and 20 mils is given to a calf from the day it's born up until the day that it's weaned, and it goes on to hard feed. And basically, the cows that are on Milo are healthier, the calves are healthier, they've got increased appetites. The university studies show that the calves put on weight much faster than those calves not on Milo. They're weaned earlier, so feed costs are saved. The calves develop their internal intestinal organs. The rumen of the calf is better developed. They turn into healthier, mature cows. And then the latest University of Queensland results show that the cows on Milo, 10 mils of Milo a day, are producing more milk, and they have higher quality milk. And the measure of that is the so-called somatic cell count. And we've had very good success of around 1/3 improvement in the somatic cell count for those cows that are on Milo. And so there are very tangible benefits that we describe collectively as healthier animals, but they have measurable productivity benefits in the animals. Thanks, Cara. I might go back to the page of the addressable market. So my contribution when I arrived at Terragen, Terragen was still a scientific organisation. It had just listed, and Great Land was being used and trialled in 13 agricultural sectors. And Milo was being commercialised in the dairy industry, but we have since earlier in 2020 decided to focus completely on the dairy market to get the cash flow up of the company and to prioritise reaching cash break-even point and become sustainable financially. So that's being achieved by focusing on the dairy market in Australia in our home territory. The addressable market of dairy cows in Australia, there are 1.44 million milking cows, and by far the largest proportion of those are the cows are based in Victoria. There's 4,500 dairy farms in Australia, and 3,500 of those dairy farms are in Victoria. So most of our sales team is based here in Victoria. The products, once produced at our factory in Coolum, are trucked from Coolum to warehouses throughout Victoria, South Australia, some in southern New South Wales. And we also do have customers in New Zealand, and we do ship our product across to New Zealand, and that's an emerging market. The New Zealand market at about 3.4 times the addressable dairy cow market in Victoria is our logical next launching place for the market, and we have had salespeople there, and we're in the process of increasing our sales resources over there. After we consolidate our operations in Australia and our sales focus in Victoria and then New Zealand, the next opportunity after that is the US dairy market. But in particular, there's a concentrated dairy market of over 1 million milking cows in the Central Valley of California. So we think that this is a very sensible approach in our prioritising of resources and our seeking to get to cash break-even point as quickly as possible, that we focus on the dairy market in Australia, then New Zealand, then the US. Thanks, Cara. The sales process is that we do have a team of salespeople internally who are very expert in the biological features of our products, but we actually get our leverage through a large agency network. There are 145 retail stores comprising the biggest Nutrien and Elders, Murray Goulburn, but there are smaller boutique agency stores, and these are the farm product stores that you'll see in every Australian country town. So we have 145 stores. There's currently more than 220 people who are trained in Terragen's products. We have decided, and we've increased our marketing resources. So we have a fair bit to do in the marketing side of things to get the story out about how good these products are and how they will benefit the productivity of farmers. So we've recently appointed a very experienced marketing and communications executive who's joined our executive team, and she is pulling together a very elaborate marketing plan which will help us in getting the good story about our products out to the farmers. We do have a lot of mainstream farmers who are very well regarded, and we do have a lot of published case studies where the products have been working very well on farms for a number of years, our so-called hero farmers. Many of them have been very happy to conduct field days on their farms, showcasing the Terragen products. And lastly, we have this year been rolling out a pump program where Terragen incurs the cost and installs pumps at the dairy farms. And the farmers simply have to put the container of Milo into their dairies, and it's pumped straight out to the feed of their dairy cows in the right doses each day. And this has been a very important part of our sales process in getting our product out. Lastly, next, Cara, just on the sales results. These results, you can have a look at these at your leisure, but we just wanted to demonstrate the increasing sales of Milo and the fact that in the last couple of quarters, the focus on commercialising Terragen and its sales has been effective. The next slide, Cara, is the cash on hand, which is always interesting for small caps that list on the stock exchange. Is that cash on hand at 30 September was 15.32 million. Our comment on that is that we're confident as a management team that that provides us with enough resources to provide us with a runway to continue the commercialising and moving towards break even commercially as fast as possible. And the last slide before I turn for questions is just you might ask, well, what are the priorities for the next 12 months? Very much the priorities are to grow sales in Australia and New Zealand and to become sustainable from a financial point of view. A very big focus on marketing and public relations so that the brand name of Terragen and also Milo and Greatland become well known in agriculture, but particularly in the dairy sector. We produce all of the product that we make ourselves, and so the scaling up of production is incurring a big focus, a weekly focus on the fermentation and the blending of product. And remember, these are live microbes. They need to be kept in good condition. And lastly, the continuing scientific research for new products. We do have a pipeline of other microbial products that we will bring to the market in due course, and we are always working on improving the current products. And I think, Tim, that gets me to probably slightly over my allocation of time for the presentation, and I might hand back to you for questions.
All good, Jim. Thanks very much for the preso, very comprehensive. We have had a few questions come in. Just a reminder to everyone, you can submit them through the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. A question to the unit economics. Can you sort of go into that side of things and talk about how many cows get you to a positive contribution?
It's a very good question, and it's one, Tim, that we're measuring internally. So part of the pivoting towards being a commercial organisation has been the setting of budgets, sales targets, and number of cows on Milo. So we do count that internally, and that's part of the weekly sales targets that we discuss, but we haven't actually announced that to the market in our quarterly announcements yet. But the reason we're doing that is because we're breaking ground in two areas. The first is we're not selling traditional farm products. We're selling a live microbial product to traditional farmers, and that's a brand new market that we're creating. And secondly, it's the first time that our product's been sold. So we're being quite conservative, and we're not announcing those targets, but I do assure the investors that that is the weekly focus internally, and in due course we will announce the penetration of the dairy market in Victoria and then rest of Australia and New Zealand.
Thanks, Jim. And just looking to the product features, the question around Milo is, does that improve the amount of gas that each cow emits?
I think they're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, and one of the 3 or 4 greenhouse gas emissions that consumers look at is methane. And cows burp quite a lot of methane, and it's quite a big percentage of the world's methane production. So the question about whether a product can actually reduce the amount of methane that a cow emits is the holy grail of agriculture world at the moment. We are actually studying Milo's potential to reduce the amount of Milo from dairy cows. We have nothing announceable at this stage, but it is one of the top 3 research projects that Terragen is actually conducting right now with the University of Queensland. And we expect to be able to put some results to the market March or April next year.
Thanks, Jim. And if you supply the pump, how long is the payback period there?
It depends, Tim, on the number of cows in each herd. So we've been flexible with our farmers, and we will install a pump depending on whether they've got a big herd is 600 cows plus. And so the payback period is pretty rapid. It might be 2 months' time, and then thereafter, if the farmer continues to stay as a sticky customer for Terragen, that's a good thing for Terragen. Dairy farmers are probably amongst the busiest of the farming categories, and they're up early in the morning. They're milking and tending their cows all day. We discovered early that we had to make the administering of Milo to the cows as easy as possible. So it's not a dry product, it's a liquid. And we thought if we install a pump and we pay for it, that'll be the easiest way for the farmer to get the product into the dairy cows. And it's proven to be successful.
Sounds good, Jim. So looking to the operations, can you explain why the lab and manufacturing facilities are in Coolum rather than down here in Victoria?
Yeah, it's historical reasons. The bacteria were isolated, and the scientists were originally from Queensland. And the origin story of Terragen is that the scientists isolated bacteria up in northern New South Wales, and those original bacteria that were genetically mapped are still in our cool room at Queensland, and they were taken to the University of the Sunshine Coast to be studied with our scientists, and then latterly the University of Queensland. So as the company got bigger, 2014, 2015, they decided to set up their laboratory and then the production facility adjacent to where the universities are, and that's the historic reason it's in Queensland.
And that that facility, Jim, what's the capacity up there at Coolum?
It's enough for us for the next few years, and in terms of our ambitious growth plans. And so fermenting these bugs looks like an elaborate garage beer brewing system with stainless steel fermenters and big blending machines. So we're in the process of expanding that all of that equipment at the moment, but it's pretty much all of it's there at the moment, and we're training up a lot of people, and we're basically getting ready for the growth that we're expecting in the next 3 years. So the answer is quite good capacity up there, and that's Terragen's competitive edge. It is quite a complex process to brew stable microbes that will be in good condition when they get to farmers. And that's the competitive edge of the company, and we've got good capacity for it at the production facility.
Thanks, Jim. And I guess in terms of putting it in a dollar value you can quantify for your customers, given the large upward move in the young cattle price lately, what's your assessment of the potential dollar benefit per animal for farmers in terms of accelerated weight gain for beef cattle that can be achieved?
Well, look, I just must emphasise we're focusing on the dairy market at the moment. So while we aspire in the future to have Milo in a form for beef cattle, that we're not actually in that market at the moment. But the recent University of Queensland studies that Terragen did show a weight gain in the dairy cows, and the cows that weren't on Milo that were being milked at the same time actually lost weight over the 5 or 6 months they were being studied. So what Milo does is it has a so-called beneficial conversion percentage, so that the animals convert more of their feed to weight, and that's why they're overall more healthy. And we do expect we'll have the same effect on the beef industry, but we haven't moved into that sector yet, Tim.
That's something for future quarters and years then maybe, Jim.
That's part of our growth, yeah.
That's fine. What level of sales does Terragen require to break even?
Well, I haven't announced that to the market, but what I am telling investors is that we do have targets internally, and probably our greatest target is to get as quickly as possible to cash break-even point. So that we're sustainable, we're viable. So in due course, as the company gets onto its feet, I'll be announcing those figures, but we've not done that to the market to date, Tim.
No worries. Now that's all the time we've got for questions for the moment. So further questions we can take offline, but really wanted to thank you both, Cara and Jim, for educating us on Terragen today. I'll pass you back now to Jim for any passing remarks.
Well, I just commend Terragen to the investors. If you're looking for something that's in the sustainability sector and you're interested about the quality of products and inputs, Terragen is an excellent investment to participate in the sustainability of the farming sector.
Very good. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Cara, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.